On this episode of 101 Sports,
we jump into MLB Free Agency.
Take a look at the recent PK 80 tournament.
Head to the ice for some NHL.
And take a look at the college football playoffs.
All that and so much more.
And it all starts right now. Welcome to this episode of 101 Sports. I'm Ellie Whittington.
I'm Thomas Hale. Before we get into the show, Ellie and I are going to work off some of that stuffing by taking on the quick hitters. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. On Friday, it was announced former NBA MVP and #1 overall pick Derrick Rose will be taking a leave from the Cleveland Cavaliers in order to evaluate his NBA future. Rose, only 29 years old, has dealt with significant injuries throughout his career and was facing at least 2 weeks sidelined with an ankle injury when the announcement was made. So, Ellie, what's your take on the whole situation?
I can't say that he's wrong for wanting to take a break from what he thinks is right, but I do believe that he's 29 years old and he's in his prime. He needs to keep playing. If this is something that he truly wants to do.
Think he's in his prime?
Well, with his injury, maybe not in his prime.
A couple injuries in there.
Yeah, but I think that he's not too old, and like if he was feeling like he was aging out, then maybe it's your time to step away. But he has had a lot go not in his favor. And I can understand why he needs to step away from the sport and reevaluate, just like a lot of players have done in the NFL.
I think that when you've had the amount of injuries, major injuries that Derrick Rose has had, he tore his ACL in 12 and had meniscus tears after that on both knees and had all kinds of ankle soreness, just injuries throughout the season, every season. It's constant. I think he needs a break eventually.
And also talking about this injury thing, the unfortunate thing that happened last season with the rape lawsuit that came against him that ended up not being true. I mean, how does that damage you as a person? So I understand why he thinks
comes a point where I think there are more things to life than basketball, and maybe it's time for him to move on.
Well, it seems like most scandals recently have involved the world of college basketball. Major League Baseball has been rocked by a few of its own over the last week. On Friday, MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred announced that former Atlanta Braves GM John Copella, would be banned from his baseball career for life due to his participation in signing bonus scheme, which ended with 13 Braves prospects being declared free agents. So, Thomas, what does this mean for Atlanta?
Let me tell you what, their rebuilding process just got a whole lot tougher. I will say that right now. Any team losing 13 prospects is in a world of hurt, especially the Atlanta Braves.
I will say this, the Atlanta Braves were in a world of hurt before this even happened.
Exactly. They haven't made the top 5 of the NL since 2013.
And my thing is, I can name one player on the Braves lineup, Freddie Freeman. Does anyone, if you're not a huge baseball fan, do you know anyone on the Braves team?
I wouldn't say so, and I think that some of these guys that they could have brought in could have become some household names, it seems like. One guy, Kevin Maitan, he was a 38th ranked player, top prospect, and they lost him.
For me, like 38th pick is not huge. Yeah. I think that the Braves made a mistake when they did their rebuilding the first time, scooted out the Upton brothers, Kimbrel, there's your pitcher, and these players that built this. They built a new stadium, and they said, oh, we're going to rebuild our team to have this new stadium. Why would you even go watch the Braves play? Yeah. Because their team is terrible.
Yeah.
And then you do this thing, and you're really screwed now. But
and this sets them for a lot of bad things in the future as well. They're not going to be able to pick up any players for the next 3 or 4 years, it looks like.
Yeah, I think that your take is that it's really bad for them. My take is it's not any worse than it already was. And so what's it going to matter for them rebuilding? They're already rebuilding.
The Braves were lost. They're staying lost for a while. The Atlanta Braves aren't the only MLB team in hot water right now. Last week, 6 players in the Toronto Blue Jays farm system were suspended after testing positive for boldenone, a steroid typically used for veterinary use. So, Ellie, how bad is this for the Jays? Terrible. Yeah?
You have someone that these players are getting suspended for drug use. This looks bad on the Jays. My thing is this is their farm team system. Something is going on down the line that needs to be stopped.
Yeah, and I think the first place you look at is the training staff. These guys are getting these PEDs from somebody. It's usually somebody that practices medicine, and it's probably somebody that's training them.
I kind of might disagree with that. Now, neither one of us can say where they're getting these drugs from, but you think it's the training staff. I think that it could possibly be out of the country. I'm saying this because the 7 players that were suspended in 2017 came from the Dominican Republic League, the farm team of the Blue Jays. So all of the players suspended this year at some point were in the Dominican Republic. I think that something is going on outside of this country that is that they are starting this.
So
and
maybe
it's
the
going
MLB
up.
may need to look into investigating farm teams overseas.
Yes.
Checking
And
those practices
that's
out.
just, I think, a speculation. I'm not saying that that's what's happening, and I definitely can't say this. But I think that how bad it looks for the Blue Jays, because think back when like A-Rod was caught with his steroid.
Right.
People were calling him A-Roid, and it looked not only terrible on A-Rod, but the whole Yankees system. I don't think we're going to hear as much about this because these Blue Jays players are not household names like Alex Rodriguez, but it looks bad on the Toronto Blue Jays.
MLB has been trying to fight drug use for so long, and this is just another step that they're taking towards it. So not a good direction for the Jays right now.
When the Boston Celtics lost forward Gordon Hayward to season-ending injury in the first game of the year, it looked like an end of the Celtics' hopes. But however, Boston has won 18 of their last 20 games, including a 16-game winning streak, largely thanks to defense, rebounding, and Kyrie Irving. So, Thomas, how far do you think the Celtics are going to go?
Look, congrats to the Celtics. They're doing great right now, and they're lucky that the Cavs are doing so bad. But as long as LeBron James is in the Eastern Conference, the Celtics are not making the finals. They're going to get to the Eastern Conference finals. They're going to play the Cavs. They're going to lose that series.
I disagree. I'm done seeing the Cavs in the finals.
Okay.
And I don't think it's going to happen this year. The Celtics are going all the way to the finals.
Why do you say that?
Because Jaylen Brown has been playing incredible. He's averaging 16 points a game, which is a huge jump from last year when he was in the single digits.
Absolutely.
And you have one of the best coaches in the league. And, you know, when you start from your coaching staff, going down to your players, and I just said Kyrie Irving, how can you
I'm not
talk
going to
about
argue that
LeBron
they're
all
not
day?
playing bad. I'm gonna argue that their defense, the Cavs' defense, their matchups, Isaiah Thomas, when he comes back, one-on-one against Kyrie Irving, that's going to be a shootout. That'll be fun to watch.
I'm not telling you the Cavs
No
are
one
bad.
can cover LeBron James still. And when you can't have an answer to LeBron James like the Warriors do.
I was going to say, the Warriors have an answer to LeBron James. So who says that the Celtics can't have an answer to LeBron James?
I do.
He can be shut down by someone, and it might
Not on
be
the
the
Celtics.
Celtics.
Not anyone on there.
I'm done. Okay, the Cavs are not doing great right now. Can you agree
No,
with
they're
that?
not. I do agree with
And
that.
they might continue on. The Celtics
That
are.
happens
So
every
we're looking
season,
right
though.
now.
LeBron's teams start pretty poorly in the beginning, then make that huge
Oh my gosh, they're
playoff
not
run.
called the James. They're called the Cavaliers. It's a whole
I
team
mean,
of
every
people.
team's basically
the
been the
Celtics
James.
are playing well. The Cavs are not.
Okay. We'll see when the finals roll around then. We'll settle this later.
Okay, that's all the time we have for these quick hitters, but don't go anywhere because I will be joined at the desk for some MLB free agency action. Stay tuned. Black Friday has passed, and there are still big names such as Jake Arrieta, Wade Davis, and J.D. Martinez still on the shelf. I'm joined by our MLB expert, Matt Hostoffel, to talk about MLB free agency. We're going to start off with number one, Jake Arrieta, and what do you think about this?
Jake Arrieta is going to get paid this offseason, and great for him. I think he's going to the Rangers 6th year, about $200 million. And the Rangers are a team, they played about 40 minutes. They play about 40 minutes from where he grew up and played high school baseball, so I think that's a big draw for him. Also, they traded away their ace, Yu Darvish, this season, so they're looking for someone who can dominate that rotation and lead them off in the one spot. I think Jake Arrieta is really their guy this year.
Are you sad that he's leaving the Cubs?
I think Cubs fans should be sad that he's leaving. He's been so dominant, and that's why he's going to be so successful for the Rangers, who really need someone to bolster their pitching rotation in the starting lineup. So the Cubs, I think they could look elsewhere. They're going to find someone, but not Jake Arrieta's talent level.
So he's moving to Texas, and you just mentioned Yu Darvish. Where do you think he's going?
I think he's going to the Cubs, as you just asked. He's going to fill that spot Jake Arrieta leaves.
They're just going to switch.
He's going to lose a bit of money, though, because that unsuccessfulness in the World Series, it definitely undoubtedly cost him some money, maybe a couple mil. I see him going about 4-year, $100 million, and people will say, oh, he's 31. Can he get 4 years? The Cubs signed John Lester when he was 31. I don't think they're going to have a problem.
For them,
exactly.
So.
John Lester's been great, so I don't think they're going to have a problem signing Darvish at 31, giving him 4 years. I think he'll be great in that rotation for the Cubs, who are going to need that, especially after losing Arrieta.
That's a good point. And we're gonna go to Wade Davis. Where do you think he's going?
Wade Davis has, not arguably been one of the best closers in baseball throughout the last year or two, and I don't see any reason why Chicago should let him go because he's been so successful. 32 out of 33 on-save attempts, a sub-2.5 ERA, and they talked about maybe moving around their bullpen, having him a setup role or even just a relief role and not closer. I really think that's a mistake. I think he's going to get about 4 years, 55, 60 mil. He should stay in that closer role for the foreseeable future.
You keep talking about the Cubs, and obviously the Cubs won the World Series last year, had a good run this year. Are you thinking that this rebuilding of the Cubs, or not rebuilding, but I guess amping up their team, is this going to help them?
I don't think they lack the offensive firepower, and adding Darvish and bringing back Davis big time is definitely going to help. So I don't think there's any reason they shouldn't be in a deep playoff run next year.
Okay, moving on, we have one player left. Shotani.
Yeah, Ohtani, the Japanese Babe Ruth. He's gotten so much hype.
The Japanese Babe Ruth?
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy because he's 23, right? If he had come here 2 years later, he could get so much, vastly more money than he's going to get. He's going to get about 3 years, about $2 million total from, I think, the Yankees. Obviously a big market for foreign players that come over. You saw Tanaka, Hideki Matsui.
He has a huge
The problem is
backing.
he's 23, and under 25 players have to be treated as minor leaguers for the collective bargaining sake. So he can't make more than about $600,000 a year for the 2 or 3 years. So he's going to get a big signing bonus as expected, and the Yankees are going to pay about $20 million just to talk to him from the team that currently owns him in Japan now. But 3 years from now, when he's done with this contract, done making that about $535,000 a year, he's going to get paid big time, assuming he lives up to expectations, which I think he will, whether it's pitching or hitting. He's going to be good.
Do you think that the Yankees are, obviously their team is very young right now, do you think they're still recruiting these young players? And if so, why do you think that
I think it's appealing to young players like Ohtani because they've been so successful. You saw Judge and Sanchez and even to a lesser extent Torreyes and Bird be so successful in their system,
Right.
and that's obviously offensive side of the ball, but they've been so successful this past year, so they're saying, even though they're bringing in a new GM, I think they're going to be good at developing young talents like myself. I'm Ohtani. I think he's going to come in and be successful with the Yankees.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for your time, and great talking some MLB free agency when it's not the season right now. So that's all the time we have. Thomas will be hitting the hard court with our NCAA basketball experts to break down PK80 tournament. Can't wait to find out what that's about.
RBIs and 36 homers. Swings at the first pitch and fouls it deep back into the stands.
Chill raw and prepared foods promptly. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Okay. She's gonna love me all over again. Now,
Jamaica, here you come.
here we go.
Good job.
I don't know what's happening. Start a new chat. What did I do? Okay. Wow. That is so weird.
Hey! Hi!
Oh my gosh. Hi. God, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm so nervous. Gia, you're so big. Come closer to the camera. Wait, now you're in my face. That was so good.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money.
Last week we saw a first for college basketball, and that was an exciting PK80 tournament in honor of Nike founder Phil Knight. The tournament featured some of the best teams in college basketball, and I'm here with our experts, Emmanuel Tobe and Evan Piercy, to break it all down. So, guys, let's get into it. Big tournament this past weekend. Yeah. Emmanuel, what player impressed you the most from the weekend?
So for me, I have to say from the Florida Gators, my man, Chris Cinderella Man Chioza. And the reason is, I know it's kind of an off-the-wall pick, but if you look at how he played last year, which is basically he wasn't the starter. He started no games. He averaged 7 points per game, as well as 3.8 assists. This year, or in the tournament, he averaged 17 points, 10 assists per game, and he was really monumental in the game.
But your pick is what you said, like off the wall. I mean, I got to go Marvin Bagley III for Duke. This guy's a freak in nature athlete. He averaged 27.3 points across every game in the tournament, 15 rebounds per game. And this guy single-handedly went and beat Florida. You know, he was a big catalyst.
I don't know if it would be single-handedly.
Maybe not single-handedly, but he was a big catalyst.
Don't say single-handedly, because he does have a lot of help, like backing him up.
Yeah, but when Duke was down, they turned to him, feeding him in the post, get him some easy buckets to get Duke back into the game, and then ended up beating Florida.
I mean, but the thing is, with him, yes, like everyone knew that he was going to be good. Everyone knew that he was going to be special. I mean, this man, he was first recruited when he was 14 years old.
Yeah.
But with Chris Chioza, I just like his story, you know. To me, I was more impressed with the fact that he went out onto the floor. He's been dealing with a shoulder injury since November 2nd, and he really just played his heart out. He's a senior, probably not going to the NBA, but he went out there on the floor and played like he was playing for something, and I respect that. I'm impressed by that.
I mean, I can get behind that and respect it, but it's not the best player in the tournament.
I remember his times back in the March Madness last season, had a lot of great moments. Marvin Bagley's got a lot to play for in the future. So, Evan, who's got the chance to take #1 from Duke?
You know, I don't know if a team can actually take the number 1 from Duke. And, you know, yes, Duke struggled against Texas, unranked, struggled against Portland State, very unranked, and struggled against Florida. In both those games against Texas and Florida was down under 3% chance to win in the second half and still won the games. And that's the key point for me. I mean, you look at their team, led by senior Grayson Allen, who is now just focusing on shooting the ball, which he's one of the best spot-up shooters in the country. You got the dynamic duo, or the Bash Bros, and Wendell Carter Jr. and Marvin Bagley III down low, and they have just dominated the paint, dominated the offensive and defensive rebound.
Yes, for the offense, but my concern is their defense. In the game against Florida, they made some key mistakes that really got them under, like when they were down by so many points in the fourth quarter. I mean, to me, with 4 freshmen like starting, as well as when Grayson Allen went out, they had 5 freshmen on the floor. You know, they made a lot of mistakes, and they really
they made mistakes, but they made mistakes early, which is the thing. You know, if you're watching this, you see Duke's down by 18 to Florida in the second half. It's like, oh well, you know, someone's about to get knocked off, but then you know they come back and win, and that's a scary thing. They were still able to win these games.
I know, but if you make mistakes against certain people and certain teams, they will burn you. Yes, Florida, to me, they didn't really take advantage of that, of the mistakes that
So, Manny,
Duke
who's
made.
your pick then?
My pick, I like to say Villanova, just because if you look at the team, if they had a really easy road into the PK80. They beat their opponents by, on average, 10.3 points per game. They were in the top 10 in offense and defensive statistics, as well as, to me, they just consistently play well.
They consistently play well, but they just don't have much size to them, and that's my thing against Villanova is when they're going up against a bigger team, such as you see UNC, Michigan State, Duke. Their tallest guys, not bigger than 6'8".
Well, guys, a lot of basketball left to be played. Okay, more season to come. But that's all the time we have for college basketball. Ellie's going to be right back with some NHL, something you don't want to miss.
The first quarter of the NHL season is complete, and it was full of surprises. I'm joined at the desk by our 2 NHL experts, Mason Stoff and Jenny Berman, to break down what's going on the ice thus far. The Edmonton Oilers season has been disappearing at best, but there is a lot of season left. So what do they have to do to turn this season around?
Okay, so the Oilers are sort of an interesting situation. But
that's one word to use.
But, I mean, they have the best player in the league, Connor McDavid, and they have Leon Draisaitl, who's a great complimentary player.
Well, he was a great compliment.
Right, and that's part of the problem. So for me, Edmonton has to go back in time and not trade away a lot of those players that they picked as first-round picks for pennies on the dollar.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, when you try and rebuild a program and you know that you're going to eventually hit the salary cap, you don't hit the salary cap and then immediately trade all those players away before you made your run.
I said they were disappearing. I meant disappointing, but evidently they're disappearing too.
Well,
their chances are disappearing.
Their chances are gone.
But here's the thing. It's not just the salary cap issue. It's the fact that they used the salary cap on the wrong players. They spent a ton of money on 30-plus-year-old Milan Lucic, who doesn't score anymore. They spent a lot of money on Chris Russell, who is an overrated defenseman. They're spending money in the wrong places, and they could have kept...
You put all your eggs in one basket. One basket, and that's the Connor McDavid basket.
They overpaid Draisaitl, and they sort of had to because he was their second-best center. But then you can't have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
And then you put him on the wing, and now he's back to center because he was so bad on the wing.
We're going to move on to a better team. Tampa Bay seems to have found a lightning in a bottle, it seems, and they are sort of top the Eastern Conference. So are we going to set to see another deep playoff for the Lightning, or is something else going to happen?
We're going to see a deep playoff run for the Lightning, assuming 2 things happen. One, they stay healthy. Because if Stamkos or another one of their best players gets hurt or their goaltender gets hurt, then they're in trouble. And 2, they don't get a terrible first-round playoff matchup, which we've seen in the past. If they get drawn against the Pittsburgh Penguins or another Metropolitan Division team, they could be looking at a first-round exit, regardless of how good they are, because when you get to the NHL playoffs, anything can happen.
And the other thing to me is just now we've seen that Stamkos line has cooled off. That line of Kucherov, Stamkos, and Vladislav Nemestikov, they were really, really hot to start the season, and especially Nemestikov, who has never scored more than about 30 points in a season on average, now is pretty much there.
And they're not going to get challenged really until they hit the playoffs because they're not in the Metropolitan Division. Whereas the Metropolitan is going to get top-line competition day in, day out. This Lightning team is really going to remain untested for the most part until they hit the playoffs. And if they get a really tough opponent that's ready for that, they're going to be in trouble.
See, to me, it's not they're going to be untested. Every team they're still going to see a lot of Metropolitan opponents. It's the fact that they haven't done that well against the Metropolitan Division that to me is the biggest question. Right now they've been doing well, but as you said, they really don't get tested. They have a pretty good strength of schedule because they're in that weak Atlanta.
And they're
division.
relying on 7 goals a game.
We're
right
going to go
now.
to Las Vegas and talk about the Golden Knights, this expansion team that has been playing quite well, and they seem to have a very balanced attack with their NHL players. Are the Golden Knights going to have a run at the Stanley Cup?
Not at all. I give this a 0% chance of happening, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they crashed out before the playoffs.
Oh, I wouldn't either. I won't give them a 0 because I want to look like the brilliant genius when they do somehow make a playoff run. I'm going to still say they have.
It's not going to happen, so
it's
you'll
about
look stupid.
1%. It's about a 1% chance, but I want to look like at least a slight genius in saying that they have a shot. And this is because assuming they get to the playoffs, and I agree with you, Jenny, I don't even think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to crash out long
But
before.
how are you looking like a genius right now if you don't think they're going to make
Because
the
I'm not
playoffs?
giving them a 0% chance. Because if I give them a 0% chance
Right.
and they do, then I look like a fool. I want to look like I had at least some hope, and that's because if they
But
make
they have no hope.
They
And
do
that's
have
the
hope.
Thing. Here's the thing. They have players, they're riding this insane wave of luck right now, and a lot of that comes from the hype of playing for a new team, but at some point that's going to go away. They're playing a junior level goaltender.
There's no guarantee that they're ever going to get off this high. They
Sure,
might get off
they have
until next
players-
year.
They have players going 10% above their career shooting percentage.
They have no
That-
goaltender,
That
that's the
doesn't
problem.
happen.
Listen, thank you both so much for filling us in on what's going on the ice. Up next, Thomas will be in the lounge with our college football experts to break down this past weekend and what this means for the future.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. Got it. No.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early. You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving. If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
You sure you don't want some? It's chamomile. Listen, you are extremely terrifying. Just the scariest undead subhuman thing on TV, and I really mean that. But I am worried that you could give my kids nightmares if they see you, so I'm gonna have to block you. So that's it. Oh, and tell the zombies they're blocked too.
Rivalry weekend is over and it did not disappoint. Chaos erupted all over college football this weekend as 2 previously unbeaten teams and 3 of the top 10 fell. With conference championships next weekend, we brought in our college football experts to help us sort through what happened this weekend. So guys, I think the big rivalry matchup was Auburn-Alabama. Huge game this weekend. So did Auburn open the door up for 2 lost teams, excuse me? And also, how did this past weekend change the playoff picture?
Well, I think there are some 2-loss teams that could make it in Ohio State and even possibly TCU, but I don't necessarily think that happened because Auburn beat Alabama. I mean, I think those would have happened regardless of how that game went, but I think there's definitely a possibility for some two-loss teams to get in.
What it does now is that the Auburn-Georgia game, if Auburn wins that game, they're a 2-loss team getting in right away.
I think Auburn really just opened the door for 2-loss teams, and I think now all those fans on game day saying we want Bama, I think it's going to say we want Auburn now.
Wow, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really see any besides Auburn really being able to make it.
Well, I think if Ohio State blows out Wisconsin, I think they'd get strong consideration. I think especially if Oklahoma ends up losing. And I think even if TCU ends up blowing out Oklahoma and then Ohio State beats Wisconsin, but it's a really close game.
Are they going to jump over Alabama, though?
I think it's possible.
I don't think you can do that.
Huge win.
I'm not on the train of letting Alabama in. I think that it would sort of be on their past pedigree. They didn't have a good strength of schedule this year.
Well, they
only lost
blew
1 game.
teams out,
but
though.
I'm still putting them in over 2-loss Ohio State.
Well,
the only 2-loss team I'm considering is Auburn.
They lost, Alabama at least, lost to a very, very good
hottest team in the nation.
That's true. That's true.
They are the hottest team, and they got them at the worst possible time.
And it was an away game.
Exactly.
And I think if you look, Alabama's 5th right now in the poll, so they're clearly the next team in line.
Keep in mind, a lot of people don't think that Alabama's schedule was great, but they played a number 3 Florida State team where France.
Yeah, but what did that team end up being? That team ended up being a below 500
You can argue
team.
that Florida State has been bad this season because Francois was out the whole entire year.
Sure, but they beat France.
Now,
Francois was out for most of that game too.
If Francois was in the whole entire year, Florida State would definitely be.
I mean, possibly, but he wasn't. So how can we really say, you know, what could have happened if this didn't? I think Alabama does have a strong chance of making it. I think for them, it's really going to come down to if Oklahoma loses, Alabama's in.
But if Oklahoma wins and Clemson wins, then it's just, and let's say Wisconsin beats Ohio State and those top 2 teams win, then it's just whoever wins between Auburn and Georgia.
Back to like the 6, 7, 8 seed. Now, Miami, if they beat Clemson, they're in no matter what.
I agree.
You have
to agree. The SEC and the ACC, those are playing games.
Agreed, yes.
That kicks Clemson out.
Oh, yeah, if they lose that,
the loser of those championship games aren't making it in. The winner's pretty much guaranteed.
Yes,
if Wisconsin wins, they're guaranteed they're getting in. Same with Oklahoma.
But TCU is not a guarantee if they beat Oklahoma. I don't think they are.
On paper, you look at Wisconsin. Okay, they're undefeated. You could argue.
I mean, if they win, they're in.
They have to be. Is it going to be a strength of schedule thing?
Strength of schedule, though.
But they're
undefeated. At the end, an undefeated Power 5 champion. I mean, there's no way any team.
I see that argument, but I can't.
I would say because if they beat Ohio State this weekend, which they very possibly can.
I think they will.
That would really block out everyone's blurriness of how great they were this year.
So for me, Ohio State right now, they're ranked behind Alabama.
Yeah.
I think if they want to jump them, obviously they need to beat Wisconsin.
But they have to really
I think they need
beat
at
them.
least 2 scores.
Well, hey guys, it's looking like 3 spots we pretty much got a pretty agreement on, and then that 4th spot's going to be a little tricky. Playoffs are coming soon. Going to be really fun to watch, Definitely going to be fun to watch. But there you have it. That's all the time we've got for right now. Ellie and I will be joining soon to discuss some interesting sports situations. You don't want to miss this either.
Ever so often you hear about a weird and entirely ridiculous in-game situation in the world of sports. One of those happened this weekend in a game against Minnesota on Saturday. The Alabama men's basketball team finished the contest with only 3 players on the floor. That's crazy.
Crazy.
Well, why did that happen? 7 players were ejected, 1 fouled out, and another got hurt. What's even crazier? Alabama almost won the game with 3 players on the floor. So Thomas, do you have a story for me about a unique in-game experience?
First of all, the fact that Alabama almost won that was absolutely absurd. I'm pretty sure they ended up outscoring them in the time that they did have 3 players.
That's a good story.
My craziest story, it's the 5-year anniversary. Thanksgiving, butt fumble 2012, Mark Sanchez gets a little QB sneak action. He's trying to go up the middle, runs into his man Brandon Moore and just spills that ball all over the field. They take it back for a touchdown, and it was easily one of the worst just plays of football I've ever seen in my entire life. Made the SportsCenter worst plays 40 weeks in a row. They had to finally retire it because they said it could be the worst play forever. Simple as that.
That's a really funny story, and I like those instances. I love watching those videos of like hilarious sports moments. I have another one that maybe not is funny, but really interesting. I'm going throwback here to Game 3 of the Stanley Cup in 1975. The Sabres and the Flyers were playing in Buffalo. They had an issue with the heat and the air conditioning inside the stadium. So this fog like just engulfs. So these players, you should definitely watch the video.
Yeah.
These players are playing hockey. The fans can't even see the players. You can't even see the puck. It's literally fog.
Indoors.
Indoors. And get this, there's a bat flying around. So this bat is flying around, and one of the Sabres players hit it with a stick and killed the bat. Fun fact, this is the only time during an NHL game that a player has killed an animal, which is probably understandable.
Manu Ginobili caught a bat that was flying around the Spurs basketball stadium one game, but he caught it, he let it go freely. He didn't end up killing it.
I think it's just an interesting
Hockey
story.
players are pretty crazy, though.
Yeah, this sounds like, I just love these throwback stories, and I think, remember the blackout in the Super Bowl a couple years ago?
The one that my Ravens won?
Oh, yeah, it's just, I think that these instances, like when you don't see these things, we love watching sports all the time, and then something interesting like this happens, and we remember it.
It's always a fun story. Always a fun story.
That's all the time we have for this episode of One-on-One Sports.
And as always, be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, all at One-on-One Sports.
For all of the producers, crew, and talent here at the show, thanks so much for tuning in. And as always,
whose side are you on?